Hello, everyone. My name is Shilpi, and first of all, thank you so much for coming on my live session. Today, I'll be taking you through something very important yet not paid much attention at, and that is communication skills. We all are, I'm sure, must be familiar with the terminology what communication skill literally means. But today we are going to cover that more in detail. We'll also be covering various aspects associated with communication skills, and we will also understand how an effective communication skill can benefit us in our day-to-day lives. So let's just begin. All right, so I'm going to share my screen. Hello and welcome everyone to my live session. All right, so today we are going to, my name is Shilpi. Today we are going to cover something very important yet not paid much attention at, and that is communication skills. I know we all are familiar with the terminology, what communication skills literally mean, but today we are going to cover the various aspects associated with it, and also we will understand how an effective communication skill can benefit us in our day to day lives. So let's begin. So I Okay, is it getting any better? Can you guys hear me? Am I audible now? I'm trying to fix my mic, so just let me know. Okay, all right. So guys, I think the audio is fixed now. All right, perfect. Okay, I'm really very sorry for the inconvenience, guys. I'm extremely sorry about that. So let's just start. All right, let's start from the very beginning. So, like I said, we are today going to cover the communication skills, which are very essential in our day-to-day lives, and we all are familiar with the terminology, but today we are going to understand what communication skills literally more than literally means, and we will not just emphasize on the literal meaning, but we'll also try to understand that how it helps us in our day-to-day life, and the various parameters which are associated to communication skills as well. So let's begin. Okay, so let's first start understanding what communication skills are. Okay, so the communication skills basically, guys, are nothing but they are the abilities to transmit some sort of information. It can be in any kind. Now, as you can see in this picture, one person is speaking, which contains whatever is he's speaking about, it contains a lot of information, and the other person is listening to him. So, similarly, communication skill is nothing but the ability that you use when giving and receiving different kind of information. And some examples may include new ideas, when you share your feelings, or even an update when you give an update on your project. You use communication skills. So, communication skills involve active listening, speaking, observing, and empathizing. We're going to cover all these points one by one more in detail. So, before we understand active listening, let's first understand how is active listening a part of good communication skills. As you can see this image above, um, do you see towards the left it says hearing, and towards the right it says listening? So, hearing is basically passive. Passive, when I say passive, it means it's indirect. So, when I hear something, that means it's an indirect way, and you do not hear actively. That means hearing is passive. That means hearing basically is not direct. So, when you hear something, it's always indirect through an indirect resource. On the contrary, however, listening is active. You directly listen to something, and it requires skill. In order to attain active listening, or in order to become an active listener, you need to definitely have some required skills. Okay, now understand what happens when there is a lack of active listening. So, when there is a lack of active listening, obviously, many kind of misinterpretations or misunderstandings may take place. As you can see in this picture here, it seems to be an image of a conference room or a meeting room where a meeting is taking place, I guess. But everybody's busy looking at their phone, which definitely means that nobody's paying attention to what the orator is talking about. So, when something like this happens, when there is a lack of active listening, it can always lead to misinterpretation, which misinterpretation means misunderstanding, which in turns backfires. And when it comes to the exact and correct reply to a person's question, it obviously is going to backfire. Let's just take an example from our day to day lives. All right, we all are salespeople, so let's just say you are taking a sales call. The customer is talking about something, he's inquiring about one of your products. You are actually hearing to the customer, but not actively listening to them. You are at the same time maybe busy replying to one of the messages. What happens at the end of such conversations is you may be under an impression that a good or a desired result is going to be achieved. But when the same doesn't happen, you become anxious as to why that did not happen. That didn't happen for a very simple reason, and that is there was definitely a lack of active listening. You were not paying attention to what the customer was actually talking about, and that is why the outcome or the desired result was not achieved at the end of the conversation. Let's just understand what are the parts of an active listener now. That may be surprising or a new concept for you, but that's very interesting, trust me. All right. So these are the parts of a listener. When we talk about an active listener, so you do not only listen through your ears. Obviously, we all know that in order to listen to something, we need ears. We listen through our ears. But in order to become an active listener, we need to use our other parts as well. Now, what those other parts are? The very first is a curious mind. Only a curious mind, your curiosity, can generate questions, and that may make you listen to the other person carefully. Eyes. When you're actively listening to somebody, now this is definitely related to a face to face interaction. When you're making a face to face interaction with somebody, and when you're making an eye contact with another person, with the person you're talking to, basically, that's when it confirms that you are actively listening to them. Mouth. You use your mouth for obviously replying to their questions, or in order to become or engage in the conversation. But you use your mouth actively when you're actively listening to your to the person who is speaking about whatever thing. Let's just say you're talking to one of your friends and he's talking about something, and you're not listening to them carefully, so you may reply to them, but that point of time your reply might not be the exact reply, or you are not basically using your mouth at most, or the way it should be used. Now, feet and hands are two parts which may surprise you the most, because I'm sure you may not have thought about these two parts. So these two parts, how are they basically parts of an active listener? First of all, let's just understand that. So I'll give you an example through which it'll be more clear to you. You must have seen situations, or you must have seen, some sort of conferences wherein the orator speaks about something. In order to engage with the audience, they use their hand gestures. They make different hand gestures in order to engage with the audience. So when they do so, they want to ensure, or they want to make the other person feel that they're confident. And it's not that they only do this, the other person also feels the same ways. The other person, that is the listener, also feels that the person who's speaking about anything, using different hand gestures, is very confident. And the same happens with an active listener also. When you're actively listening to somebody and you're making certain hands or feet gestures, like you're crisscrossing your feet, it makes the other person feel that you're actively listening to them. So using these parts, or by using these parts actively or effectively, I would say, you definitely can become an active listener. Moving on. uh, all right, I know that after going through all this, some of you even now must be thinking like them. But let's just keep the jokes aside, and let's understand the difference between hearing and listening, which I just now mentioned previously. All right, so hearing and listening, I discussed that with you before, that there is a vast difference between hearing and listening. Now, what hearing actually is, and how it is different from listening. Hearing is basically accidental, involuntary, and effortless. When you hear to something, let's just give me an example again. Let's just say you live in a society and there is a loudspeaker which actually plays a song. So you do not, you just hear that accidentally. It's involuntarily been heard, and effortlessly. You did not put any kind of effort in order to hear to that. On the contrary, listening is focused, voluntary, and intentional. Again, let's just take an example for listening. Let's just say you are in a mood to listen to some of your favorite singer's songs. Now, to do so, you open your phone and you play the list where the songs are available, maybe YouTube or your playlist, and now you listen to the songs. Now, this is called listening, because now when you're listening to the songs, you're focused. You voluntarily listening to this because you wanted to. Intentional. It's obviously you're listening to these songs because it's intentional, right? So these differences make hearing and listening different. Okay, so please understand and make sure that you listen to the person and do not hear to them. When I talk about active listening, that is not about hearing, and but that is about listening to the person, and that too actively. All right, now let's understand active listening skills. What are the skills? What are some of those skills which one must attain in order to become an active listener? All right, so if you want to be an active listener, there are certain skills where that one must possess or one must attain. Some of them are: build trust and establish rapport. Now, what does it mean? It means that when you're talking to somebody, you talk to them in a way that you're building trust with them, that they can trust you. Whatever they're talking about or whatever secrets they're sharing with you, they can trust you on that. Demonstrate concern. One of your friends comes to you with a sad story, you show concern to them with words like, "Oh, I'm so sorry about that." Similarly, ask specific questions. You're talking to one of your friends, he or she is telling you about how his or her day was, and you ask them specific questions as to, "Oh, really? Why?" Okay. So, similarly, when you do these kind of things, when you actually follow these kind of skills that make you an active listener, there is one more, which is to use brief verbal affirmations. Now, in order to do so, you can say words like "I see." So you can use verbal affirmations like "I see," right? So when you want to become an active listener, you need to attain these active listening skills. Now, active listening techniques can help you truly understand what people are saying in conversations and meetings. So they are actually very beneficial. Not just in sales, guys, but for any job, active listening is the key or roadmap to success. We all must agree to that. Okay, now after understanding so much about listening, hearing, and active listening, let's just make this interesting with the help of an activity. So I want you all to do this activity you can do this activity with anybody. You can involve your team members, or you can try and do it with your siblings or anybody you like. So it is basically about creating a story. Now, first of all, in this activity, we form a group. It can be a group of 4 or 5 people or members. And what happens is, one person from the group will start the story and stop anywhere. From there, the next has to continue. It's as simple as that. So, I want you all to practice this and let me know how much did it help. Moving on. Okay, now we're going to talk about the second important skill for good communication, and that is to speak well. So, speaking well has many aspects. Let's just understand them one by one. First is the thought process. Now, what do we understand with the terminology or with this word thought process? Thought process basically is the idea that comes in our mind. So let's just say that I want to talk to somebody in a language which is not my first language. Okay, so some people, what they do is they think of, or they get the ideas, or they think of the whatever they want to speak about in their local or native language, and then they translate it in the language they need to speak to. Let's just say, for an example, here English is the language they need to speak in. So they're thinking in Hindi, translating that in English, and that takes time. So that gap makes you not to be speaking well, or I can say in other words that actually shows lack of thought process. So how can we work on our thought process? How can we make sure that our thought process is well in place? In order to do so, there are various activities that can be performed. First is, you can try, let's like I said, we are talking about English. So, in order to work on your English, start reading stuffs in English. Start with reading, English newspapers, novels, or whatever you like. Start watching English content. Start conversing to your team members, your family members, as much as possible in that particular language. And that's how you can improve your thought process. And when your thought process improves, your speaking skill automatically gets improved. Second and third, sentence structure and grammar, they both are interrelated. Now, grammar and sentence structure, they both definitely are very important skills when it comes to speaking well. Grammar, it is not just limited to tenses. When I say grammar, it's not just tenses, guys. So grammar is much more than that. It tells you, various voices like active and passive, and it also teaches you the sentence structure, how to form a proper sentence. So when your grammar is well in place, you can form proper sentences, and when you can form proper sentences, that is when your speaking skill automatically gets improved. Now, the fourth is to be comprehensive, which means to be or to stick to one topic. You are to speak, or you are given a topic, you need to speak about that. So stick to that topic. To stick to that topic and describe that in detail, and that's how we can be comprehensive. Moving on. All right. Now again, it's an activity time to understand this better. Now, this activity we actually are going to obviously do in order to improve our speaking skills. So what is this activity? Basically, this activity is again going to be done in groups. So again, we need to form a group of some team members, or you can do it again with your near or dear ones. So what do we need to do here is, one member of the team needs to give a topic to the other member, and that member has to speak about it. The topic can be any. You can give the other member a topic which can be related to a movie, or it can be about a party that they recently attended. As simple as that. Trust me, this activity is also very interesting and very helpful. Do try this and let me know how much it helped. Alright, so the third important skill for good communication is to be a good observer. Now, is this what we mean by this? Well, not exactly. So, how can we be a good observer? Let's just understand. In order to become a good observer, we need to start observing things in a systematic manner. We need to pay attention to everything that happens in our surrounding, and not just to the ones which we think are important. We should start looking at the patterns and make connections. We should not assume that later on I'm going to remember everything. So instead, if you want to be a good observer, start taking notes. Or you can also mark it somewhere in your calendar, so that you can be a good observer and you can actually remember it later. All right, moving on. Again, it's an activity time. So, in order to work on your observing skill, let's just do the simple activity which is called journalizing. Okay, in this activity, you have to keep a record of things you see outdoors. It can be anything. Let's just see that you look outside and it's a sunny day. Some children are playing in the park. So, you just keep a close record of, you just observe it all very keenly. And what you have to do is, you have to ask yourself questions about what you observe. Try to figure out ways to answer your own questions through your own observations. That's how this activity is done. So please try this out, and it definitely will help you in improving your observing skills. Last but not the least, um, just a second, guys. Okay, I'm so sorry. Just give me a second. All right. Okay. So after this activity, we need to. We actually are on the last one, which is empathy. So it is last but not the least important skill for good communication, which is to empathize. Let's first understand what empathy is. So, empathy is basically the capacity to experience other people's thoughts and feelings from their point of view rather than your own. So, when you talk to somebody, instead of thinking from your own perspective, just try and think about it from their perspective. And in order to do so, there are certain things which can always be tried. For an example, you can try and spend time with people who are different. You can get a set of questions and empathy cards. You can join an active acting or improvisation class if you have time. You can always test your emotional intelligence. There are some questions or some of these questionnaires available on internet, so you can try and test them out. And then obviously there are some recommended resources available. If you have time, if you would want to go through them, you can also try them out. For an example, there is one which is Daniel Pink's A Whole New Mind. So by following these, you can definitely work on your empathy skills. Now, there are certain sentences which always can be said in order to empathize with the other person. We all are salespeople, so let's just understand it from the sales perspective. So, let's just say you're talking to a customer, and these are some of the sentences that you can always say in order to show empathy to your customer. For an example, thanks for your valuable time and patience, sir. I can help with that. You are absolutely correct, sir. Thank you very much for alerting us about this. So, if I'm rightly getting it, you were saying that I know exactly how it feels. Am I able to answer all your questions? Do let us know if you have any further questions, sir. So these are some of the sentences, some of the examples which definitely you can implement in your during your conversations with your customers to show them empathy. In order to understand this more in detail, I have some like list of here is a list of empathy statements. I've picked some list of empathy statements so we can understand this more in details and relate it to our sales calls. So, say for an example, if you say a sentence like this, if I'm understanding correctly, so why would you say a sentence like this to a customer? You would say this to clarify the customer's meaning and to ensure that you're both on the same page. You cannot fully empathize with a customer unless you understand their problem. So, start by using empathy statements. And also start using I more so that they can feel that you are involved. They can feel that personal approach during the conversation. The second is, if you say a statement like, I would feel X too in that situation, or had I been in your situation, I would have felt the same way. So why would you say something like this again? This empathy statement basically makes the customer feel that you are putting yourself in their shoes, and that's why you say something like this. So by confirming that you would feel the same way, you create a sense of accord. It not only shows empathy for the customer's plight but also assures them that their feelings are understandable. Okay, now when you say you're right, what do you mean, or why would you say you're right? So when you say you're right to a customer, you basically empathize with them, and you use this empathy statement in order to validate the customer's point of view. Telling a customer when they are right about an issue helps them to see that helps the customer see you on their side. They can actually feel that you are on their side. They feel understood, that you understand what they are feeling right now, and they recognize that you are listening to them, and you definitely are going to fix whatever their problem is or whatever has upset them. Fourth, if you say, I have experienced this issue recently too. All right, so I have experienced this issue recently too. Again, this empathy statement is also said or can also be said to a customer when you want to put yourself in the customer's shoes. Because when, like the customer faces a problem, they always want to, they always want to be felt that they are being listened to and there is somebody who can actually resolve their problem. So this has some major effects. You validate the customer's concerns by confirming that this is an issue others have experienced too. It's not just you, but there were other customers also previously in the past or right in the present who are experiencing the similar kind of issues. You demonstrate that you understand the situation entirely, and you make a stronger connection because of it. Okay, after understanding all these points so much in details, let us understand why good communication skills are so important. We have gone through so many things. We understood the difference between hearing and listening, what an active listening is, and also we understood how can we speak well. So after understanding all that, it is very important to understand why it is still important to have good communication skills. So there are various reasons, or there are various situations wherein good communication skills help a lot. Say, for an example, the first, building trust. If you really want to build trust in somebody's heart or in their mind, I'm not talking about the customers at this point, it can be anybody, it can be your loved ones, or it can be a customer also for that matter. So, if you want to build trust, you must have good communication skills. In order to prevent or resolve problems, good communication skills are very important, because if you have good communication skills, you certainly are going to prevent yourself from getting into any kind of problem. And if somehow you get into one, you definitely can resolve your problems very easily if you have good communication skills. With the help of good communication skills, or good communication skills also provides clarity and direction. So with good communication, or with effective communication skills, you are able to deliver clear expectations and objectives for your team. Here I'm talking about, a team, because that's how we can relate to it, in a better manner. So, this involves finding constructive ways to point out when something is not working, as well as providing helpful feedback to get people back on track. So, that's how you can provide them clarity and also direct them or lead them to the right direction. Fourth is creates better relationships. With the help of good communication skill, you can also create better relationships with anybody. Again, with anybody, not just with your customers, but with anybody. If you have good communication skills, your relationships automatically get better. It increases engagement. If you really want to engage with somebody, it is very important to have good communication skills, guys. Without a proper, or without a good communication skills, it is very difficult to engage in a conversation. If you really want somebody to be actively listening to you when you are talking to them, it's very important to have good communication skills, because that is only the way out, with the help of which you can increase the engagement. It also improves productivity for sure. If you really want to improve your productivity graph, it is going to go higher and higher if you have good communication skills. So, with the help of good communication skills, you can always increase your productivity graph. Now, good communication skills also promote team building. Now, with the help of improved or good communication skills, team members will be better able to rely on each other. You will not have one team member feel as they have to carry the entire group, but this improved division of labor will encourage positive feelings and relationships between the team members, which leads to improved morale and work experiences. So, this is all for today's session about communication skills. I hope this helped you, and this is going to help you in future as well. Now I would request you all to please practice whatever activities I discussed during the session, because they definitely are going to help you a lot. So please try those activities which I mentioned during the active listening and during the observation, and do let me know if that helped you, and also your feedback about it. Okay, so it's the question and answer time, guys. So if you have any questions for me, just let me know and I would love to answer to them. I'm just checking the comments and I cannot see any questions so far. So if you have any questions for me on anything we have discussed so far, do let me know and I will definitely answer to that. All right. I cannot see any questions posted so far. So, what we can do is, I'm winding up today's session here. And thank you so much for having me here with you today. And if you have any questions, you can always connect with me and you can always let me know. And I would be more than happy to help you with that, with any questions or with any problems you come across. So, thank you so much once again for having me with you. Thank you so much.